Let us delve into the profound impact of urbanization on our planet's geographical landscape. As cities expand, they dramatically alter the natural environment, creating both challenges and opportunities. One of the most evident impacts of urbanization is the loss of natural habitats. The expansion of cities often leads to deforestation and the destruction of ecosystems. For instance, in many developing countries, urban sprawl has led to the loss of critical wildlife habitats and biodiversity. This not only affects the flora and fauna but also disrupts ecological balance, leading to long-term environmental consequences. However, urbanization also brings the opportunity for sustainable development. Modern cities, with their concentrated population, can potentially reduce the per capita environmental impact. Urban areas are ideal for implementing green infrastructure, like vertical gardens and efficient public transport systems, which can mitigate some of the negative effects of urban sprawl. The challenge lies in planning and developing cities in a way that balances growth with environmental sustainability. This requires innovative urban planning that integrates green spaces, promotes efficient resource use, and fosters a harmonious relationship between urban development and the natural world. Electricity is the physical flow of electrons referred to as an electrical current. Electricity is an energy carrier that efficiently delivers the energy found in primary sources to end users, who in turn convert it into energy services. Electricity can be created in three main ways. The most common is through electromagnetic conversion, where electricity is generated by moving an electric conductor, like wires, inside a magnetic field. The most practical example of this is a generator connected to a turbine. The turbine provides the motion required to move the conductor in the generator. This energy for motion can come from various technologies. For example, wind turbines, hydro, or the steam created from heat produced a nuclear fission or coal combustion. Electricity can also be created through a chemical reaction. An example of this is a battery or fuel cell. Finally, electricity can be created through solid-state conversion, where electricity is generated using the structure and properties of a solid. A specially constructed solid consists of different molecules packed closely together to create an electric current when stimulated. An example of a technology that utilizes solid-state conversion is a solar PV cell. It is important to note that electricity is the same regardless of how it is produced. So the electricity generated from an electromagnetic generator is the same as that from a battery. There are at least 5 hotspots of floating plastic in the global ocean. These are gyres, where circulating currents trap debris. This one, the so-called Great Pacific Garbage Patch, is the largest, with almost 80,000 tons distributed over 600,000 square miles. The scientists teamed up with a charity that collects old fishing gear and other litter from the ocean, and gathered hundreds of plastic items to study in the lab. They found plants and animals, including anemones, tiny marine bugs, mollusks, and crabs on 90% of the debris they examined. As well as creating a semi-permanent floating habitat for coastal species in the open ocean, the researchers say all this plastic could be providing invasive species with rafts that allow them to cross the Pacific. This, they say, is yet another unintended consequence of plastic pollution for the ocean. Giant exoplanets, like the so-called hot Jupiters that are similar in biggest characteristics to the solar system's planet and orbit very close to their host stars, are excellent targets for astronomers in their search for their extrasolar worlds. The size and proximity of these planets is easy to detect as they create a large decrease in brightness when passing in front of their parent stars. So between 4000 and 3000 BC the Mesopotamian Sumerian cultures do not practice any kind of burial. And then, about 3000, in the early dynastic period, these burials start to reappear, and they reappear with a certain amount of conspicuous consumption, and this is the context for the royal burials at Ur. Okay, so, the royal cemetery consists of quite a number of pits, so these are the excavation workers who are coming down into the pits. So you get some sense of how really deep and how really difficult it was to construct these chambers. In this tutorial, we will show you how to find specific journal articles using the library catalog. The university subscribes to over 18,000 journals across a variety of subjects, most of which are available electronically to find a specific journal article using a library catalog. We need to search by the journal name as individual article titles are not listed in the catalog. Long-term exposure to noise can lead to loss of hearing. The relative loudness of sounds is measured in decibels. Just to give you an idea of what this means. The sound of a whisper is 30 decibels, while a normal conversation is 60 decibels. The noise a vacuum cleaner makes is around 85 decibels. The danger zone, the risk of injury begins at around 90. Continual exposure to sounds above 90 decibels can damage your hearing loud noises, especially when they come at you every day. All this noise can damage the delicate hair cells in your inner ear. Lots of everyday noises are bad for us in the long run. For example, a car horn sounds at around 100 decibels. A rock band at close range is 125 decibels. A jet engine at close range is one of the worst culprits at an ear-busting 140 decibels. The first thing to go is your high-frequency hearing, where you detect the consonant sounds in words. That's why a person with hearing loss can hear voices, but has trouble understanding what's being said. The year 2020 has been a tumultuous one for educators. Hundreds of thousands of teachers across the globe had to get to grips with online platforms to deliver their lessons. Millions of students were stuck at home doing their lessons via websites like Zoom. This has created an unprecedented transformation in education as technology has taken center stage. The quality of education differed around the world according to the quality of internet connections, the level of preparedness of teachers and their competence in engaging with the technology. It also depended on what kind of devices students had at home. Many students were deprived of lessons because they had no computer, tablet or smartphone. University is one of the happiest times of our life. If you go to university, that is, I totally loved my university days. I also loved my university. I had 3 great years of being a student. It was the first time I lived alone without my parents. I had to cook, wash and clean for myself. I loved it. I had complete freedom. I also loved the studying. It was much more interesting than studying at school. It was nice to just wander along to a lecture, do the reading, and then do the assignments. I really felt like I was learning something. I also loved the social life at university. It's almost 24/7. There are always parties and things to do. You have to get the right balance between. No news is good news may be true for most of us most of the time after all. We don't look forward to unpleasant things happening to us, but bad news is true for those who work in the news media, and, I suspect, for the rest of us, at least some of the time. It is tied up with stories and our seemingly insatiable need for stories. Have you ever been gripped by a story where nothing goes wrong for the characters? There's incident in a Kingsley Amis novel that nicely illustrates this. The main character Jake comes home to find his wife chatting to a friend about a hairdresser both women know who has moved with his family to somewhere in Africa. Jake listens in, expecting tales of cannibalism and such like, but no, the friend has just received a letter saying they love the place and are settling in nicely. Jake leaves the room in disgust. We demand to be entertained, and while we don't object to a happy ending, the characters have to have experienced loss, pain and hardship in one form or another along the way to have deserved it. What we are going to find out today is how it's a bit more complicated than that, which it always is. I think it's really ordinary wonderful. I mean, not being an experimental scientist myself, I have a kind of confusion envy at the way in which science can continue to surprise us by this. People working away in labs, moving on our understanding in ways. Hugo is a cognitive scientist at the French National Center for Scientific Research. Hugo Mercier. This book discusses cultural impacts on our actions significantly. Digital systems have simplified borrowing books, making it more accessible today. The university's website has many additional useful resources available. Scholarships help meet financial needs of students globally and locally.